Okay, good day, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're at the top of the hour. And welcome to Virtual Thursday for July 19th, 2018. This is our 13th presentation of Virtual Thursdays. And we're going to go ahead and jump into this thing as quick as we can here. A few things we want to talk about first, though, is today we're going to cover the Hydrants Module, Let It Flow. We haven't discussed this in a Virtual Thursday in a while, so we thought it'd be a good topic to present. So my name is Mark Wolf. I'm a regional trainer, and I'll be the main presenter today. And with me today, I have Alan Miller. That's going to be what we call Flying Wingman. If anybody has any questions they want to post down in the questions or chat window, go ahead and feel free to do so.
Hey, Mark, we're not seeing your screen. Oh, there we go.
Yep, and then I just saw that I was not sharing my screen. So welcome again. Again, my name is Mark Wolf. We have Alan Miller with us and a couple other of our emergency reporting folks we have on board with us is Tom Lewis, who is our professional services manager now. And we have Michael Bozzoni. He's also a part-time regional trainer. And they're going to be helping us out here if we need that today. So I'm going to check one thing here. Okay, so I want to talk about a few training opportunities. First of all, Virtual Thursdays, to remind everybody they're free. Just takes a little bit of your time, the first and third Thursdays. And if you cannot attend them live, like you are right now, we do record them and we put them into the knowledge base on our support page so you have access to them whenever you may have time to do that. We do provide online training, 3-hour time blocks for any kind of topic and material that you need for your agency. We do provide on-site trainings. If you prefer to have one of our trainers come in on site, you can certainly do so. And contact us through training@emergencyreporting.com and we'll get you a quote out for that. And last but not least, we do provide regional training academies around the country. And we have one coming up here in August 21 through 23 in Denver, Colorado. And in September, we'll be in San Antonio, Texas. And then in October, we're going to wrap up the year with a presentation in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. We do have the slate of dates set for next year, and they'll be published soon. So you can keep track of that if you want to try to budget to attend one of those next year. I do want to provide a shout out to a few folks I saw on our attendee list that I looked at a few minutes ago. I want to say hi to Maury Jenkins down in Statesville, North Carolina, Todd Russell up in Palmer, Alaska. I saw that Doug Wolters up from Salina, Ohio, which is pretty close to me. Good afternoon, Chief. And Deputy Chief Jack Snyder from Elko, Nevada is online, and probably a few others now. We have looks like a total of 60 some folks online with us today. Currently, we had I think 151 registered, which is excellent for a middle of the summer presentation. We're going to go ahead and get moving here then. And now we have logged into my training account through Firefox today, and I'm going to go ahead and jump right into this and go right to the Hydrants module. And we're going to talk about a few things now. Now you'll know that the Hydrants module is very well developed, and you can keep a lot of excellent records within your account for your hydrants. Some departments I go to, they say, why should we maintain records for our fire hydrants? We don't do any service work on them. We don't do any testing on them. Somebody else does all that. So the answer I typically give them is, from what I've seen and what I've experienced in my career, is the fire departments keep a lot better records than their water district or water department. And you can kind of look at it in many cases as an act of self-defense, because when you have folks come in to do a survey such as ISO, or if you're accredited through SIPC, they have certain standards that you need to make. ISO, for example, 40% of your score comes from the water department, and they use the AWWA and Nfpa standards. There's a few breakdowns in that, and a few of those points, about 25% of those, 40% of those points, the fire department, if you're keeping good records in your emergency reporting account with your hydrants, you can get the full 10 points for that section of those two sections of it, which is excellent for you. So it's pretty much help yourself out. Another big reason to use the hydrant module in collecting the data, even if you only put the hydrants in for locations, is that you can use it for pre-planning needs. I'm going to jump into the occupancy module and pick random occupancy out. Here, let's see, we'll go to Church of the Brethren over here on Central Avenue. And this account that I'm using is based upon the community I live in Greenville, Ohio. In your occupancy on the Fire Protection Systems tab, when you select that tab, if you have good data in for your fire hydrants and your occupancy, the 10 closest fire hydrants in a straight line direction as the crow flies will be displayed on the page. And you can see we've got the distance listed here, the available gallon per minute flow from that hydrant, the status of it, whether it's in service, out of service, the type of hydrant is listed in the actual location of it. So this is really, really good pre-planning information, especially if you have a major incident at that facility or building, that you can look up your closest fire hydrants. And you can do that on scene if you can get access to your internet capability. So I see David ask a question here. Alan, I'll just speak of this real quick since I saw it there. He was asking about, is there any way to add water mains as part of the mapping feature? And there is unfortunately not at this time. So let's see. And the first question we have from Joshua. Yes, there is, Josh. His question is, how do we enter dry hydrant information in drafting sites? So yeah, we can do that. You can put those in and I'll show you how we would accomplish that. So the first thing we're going to do is to talk about, well, still in the record keeping sphere of things. If your fire department is responsible for doing hydrant maintenance, testing, and inspections, the system is absolutely built to help you out quite a bit. And we're going to demonstrate for you in a little bit how to auto-generate work orders. So if you do your hydrant flushing on a 6-month basis, as ISO really recommends and wants you to do, or you do it on an annual basis, you can set the system up to automatically create work orders to keep you on track and on task with that. And there are bulk operations for that creation of work orders and to complete the work orders to minimize your time on the keyboard maintaining the records. So everybody should be viewing my hydrant grid here. We're going to talk about this page first, just to go over a few things. We have several columns here that are in the grid by default. The ID of the hydrants listed down here. Now the ID number can be numerical. You can use alpha characters in there as well, as like A, B, C, D, and so forth. The service column notes whether the hydrant is in service or out of service. You can see all of these currently are listed in service and with the green font. If I change to show me out of service hydrants, only you can see it, that font turns red for those. We're going to display all hydrants. And by the way, those are filters I'm using at the top of the page, and you can add more than one filter to the grid to get to narrow that down for the information that you need to see. Now in this particular account, in this community, with the type numbers, when we originally set up this in emergency reporting, we used the hydrant valve size as the type, and that was important information for us to collect back in the day. You can set this up, and this type list is settable by you, and we're going to look at that in a little bit here. And as you can see, I've got different valve size types. We have a type of a dry barrel, wet barrel down here, and also dry hydrant. So for Josh, that's what you would want to do in that type field. Set it up as a type dry hydrant or a other drafting site, however you would term those in your community, and go ahead and put them in your account that way as well. The next field over we're going to look at is the address field. So this is the address of the hydrant. And when we come over to the location, this is an additional field for the hydrants that you can put in to get the exact location of it. Many hydrants are at intersections, and that may not really match up too well with an address field. And we'll show you that when we're putting in a hydrant in a little bit. The district field. Now the district field is pretty unique, and you can be somewhat creative with this in your agency. And our city here, we had used the district numerically, 1, 2, and 3. Now what it's really intended for is what water company or water district supplies those hydrants. And many departments, especially the larger fire protection districts, or even a county fire department, they may have multiple water districts or water companies that supply water. You can set these up in the settings specifically to your community, or you can be more creative with them and subdivide different units or zones, perhaps even by setting them up as well. It's really your choice in how you want to do that. The next column over is the zone column. And you can see on the top of this, I selected right next to zone, and I selected this to put them in ascending or descending order. And now we have geographical areas built in here. In our community, we had zone A, B, and C. We have a large creek that runs through our community, and that was a separating line there. And we have an east-west railroad that separated the central zone from the south zone, and that's how we had put them in and established them. And we had them split up that way in our city for our fire responses and our occupancy zones as well, pretty much the same way. The status field down here is another field that you can use as pretty much of a free play. And in a brand new account, you'll have a couple entries in that. I believe in-service and in-service needs checked or in-service needs repaired will be in there. And then you can add other items to this as you need and apply for your account. And all of these zones have the ability to sort by that zone by selecting it, ascending or descending with your district, and you can apply more than one zone. So if I come in here and say, I want to see hydrants in District 1, Zone A, and it's going to use those two filters. And I could even apply additional filters to that if I want to. So I've went down from 900 and so hydrants. In the bottom right corner of the grid, you can see the total number of hydrants you have in your account. And then I filtered it with two filters. I went down to 81.
Todd Russ was asking if you can click on the type again so you can see the list.
Oh, perfect. Yes, I can.
Thank you.
So what I have in this particular account, when we first set this up, I just took before I retired, I got a copy of CSV download of the account here of the hydrants, and I imported it. They had these broken down by size of the valve on the hydrant. 4, 4 1/4, 5, 5 1/4, and 6 1/4. And then you can also put them in to hydrant types of dry barrel, which is what most of the country, especially Todd up there in Palmer, Alaska, I'm sure if you have hydrants, they're dry barrel hydrants. And then out in California, primarily in Southern California, you'll see a lot of wet barrel hydrants. We don't have those where I live because it freezes here in the wintertime. And then also dry hydrants. And you can put additional types in here if you need to. Those are the ones we see typically: dry barrel, dry hydrant, and wet barrel. So hopefully that's what you can use as a guideline then. Okay, perfect, Todd. I see where you said all dry barrel. I would assume so up in Alaska. I think it gets cold there once in a while. Okay, so let me move on then. Now, one thing we do get, I want to talk about, for example, is in the zone field. We have quite a few larger accounts that have multiple stations and shifts. They want to break the hydrants up and be able to filter the list pretty easily to see what station and shift has a hydrant. So you may need to go a little bit creative with this. And one of the ways that we recommend to do that is to name them by station, like example for station 4, create a zone for that, and then create a zone 4 Alpha for A shift, 4 Bravo for B shift, and 4 Charlie for C shift. That way you can filter the list pretty quickly and see who's responsible for what hydrants. So that's just one example of some of the flexibility with that system. So that's the basic grid, and I'm just taking a look at the question list, and I think Alan's already caught up. And it looks like we are, so we're going to go ahead and move on and talk about some other links and features on the grid. Up here at the top, we have the link to add a hydrant. We're going to go in and do that in just a little bit. If we move to the right of that, the CSV download, and this takes your hydrant list, and this will be the list that is filtered. So right now, if I did a CSV download of this list, I would get 81 entries, 81 rows on that. If I take those filters off, I would have over 900 rows. So when you do that download, it does work off of your filters. The next item I have is a Google Earth export. So in this case, if I want to just demonstrate that real quick, if you need to provide a map of your hydrants and you don't have the mapping module initiated in your account, you can download them to Google Earth. So I've got 81 hydrants in here because I've got this list filtered, that we're going to go ahead and throw that file out to Google Earth, and you'll see exactly where I am when it comes down in here. And there's all those hydrants that I filtered out right there. And you can see they're all color coded and put on that map. And the latitude, longitude coordinates that I have for each hydrant are pretty accurate. So they're located exactly where they are in real life out there. So that's how that download works for Google Earth. You do have to have Google Earth installed on the computer. You do that download too. And we're going to get back out here to the grid. Advanced search. So when we click the link for advanced search, we're going to navigate here, and we have additional fields that we can put in here, such as ownerships, the status, in service, out of service, manufacturer, model, if you have models in the system, and station list as well. One thing I want to point out to you down here in the address, if you do select basic search, it's going to give you one field to put in. And if I use that field and run that search, what that does is puts a keyword into the address field up here. So I have my keyword of Maine, and you can see I filtered that list by that keyword down to 18 hydrants. So that's how that basic address search works. And if I use the advanced search, I can use other elements in my addressing field to pull up those hydrants. So we're going to go ahead and clear the search options and go back to my grid. And bulk operations. And we have the grid out here, and this is what I was talking about before with if you're needing to set up a maintenance schedule for your hydrants, you can do a bulk operation. Now, one thing you do have to do is select what hydrants you need to add for that bulk operation all the way over here in the leftmost column. One of the nice things about this is that you can actually filter this out. So I'm going to go to District 3, Zone C, and my list should filter down to about 56 hydrants. Now I'm going to come up here, and I could go through here and individually select the hydrants that I want to include in this bulk operation, but I am going to actually select all of them. So I've got all 56 selected, and that bulk operations on the hydrant grid has several operations. The first is that I can print, I can schedule maintenance, I can create work orders, I can change my hydrant settings. Now those hydrant settings that I can change are limited to the service status, whether it's in or out of service, the service responsibility, so who is responsible for doing the service on them, or the ownership. So we've only got a limited amount of fields that you can change the settings on, or we can delete the hydrants using that delete. And I want to caution you that when you delete a hydrant, it is a hard delete, and we cannot recover that data. So just be aware of that if you actually do perform a bulk operation with delete or delete a hydrant in the first place. It is a hard delete. And we're going to get back to that in just a little bit here to do a bulk operation for you. So let me unselect that, and I'm going to take my filters off. And the next thing we're going to do is move on up here to the navigation bar and talk about flow test records. When we select that, the flow test records will bring up any flow tests that we have in the system. So we go by several columns here as well. Hydrant ID, and we can filter that as well. So let's say we only wanted to see the test records for hydrant number 2. I enter 2, select enter, and now it's bringing up anything that's found a 2 in it there. So it filters that list quite a bit. The date and time of the test, our static pressure recorded during the test, our available flow that was calculated, our test results if we selected, passed or failed, will be displayed, and who is tested by. You do have a few other options here. You can do a CSV download off this list, advanced search, and there's a few advanced search features in here, hydrant ID, tested by, our test results, whether it passed or failed, remarks, and then test date. The date range you can put in here and run that advanced search, a few bulk operations. And in this case, the bulk operations are limited to printing this list and deleting. So that's that bulk operation. The same thing works with that bulk operation. You have to select them over here in the left column before that bulk operation will work. We're going to go ahead and jump into the work orders. Now this is any work order that is out there, whether it's been completed or it's not completed. Again, it's a grid typical of the other ones, starting with the hydrant ID, the request date, who requested it, the title of the work order, the problem, the status of it, whether it is completed or not, simply a yes or no, the completed date if it is completed, and who completed it. And you also have the availability to a CSV download, advanced search. So you've got a few additional fields in here that you can pull from on your advanced search, and a bulk operation. And this bulk operation is limited to printing them out, completing bulk work orders, and then deleting work orders. So if we set up that schedule that's going to auto-generate work orders, and let's say we have 100 fire hydrants that we need to do an inspection or test on, you can go in and do a bulk operation, and by checking marking the hydrants, maybe even filtering your list to narrow that down for you to find them on the list, and go ahead and do this, performing a bulk operation to complete them. For example, you can minimize your keyboard time, like I mentioned before. All righty, so we're going to catch up over here. I think, Alan, do you need to break in? Do we have anything that you need to?
One thing that I was going to mention, I've got to look back. David Rodriguez was asking about having the address in the field here for work orders, and it's not for the sortable tabs at the top. But you can, if you do a CSV download, you will be able to see the address that way. And I was also going to see, I can't remember if you print them, if it shows up.
We'll try real quick on a work order. Let's go over here and see if we can print this top one. And I can't remember as well. And the answer is yes. So if we print them, I have to pull this over from my other screen. As you can see, here's our work order for that hydrant. It gives us the location and the address. It's top of the page and a lot of other data. So the answer is yes.
Okay. Then let's see here.
I saw Brian. Good afternoon, Brian. Brian up in North Dakota. Are they or can they be the same as incident zones? And absolutely, Brian, they can be. What I do in most of the time I work with the department, I would recommend that you set up your zones for incidents, hydrants, and occupancies the same. It gives you a lot of really good results down the road when you're filtering data for reports and so forth. And you can customize that for whatever needs you have locally. You don't have to do it that way. Anything else there, Alan? I'm going to scan down the list.
Can this be used? I'm trying to, Michael's question, can this be used to assign an area to a station to do flow test maintenance? I'm not sure what he was referring to, because I was answering other questions when he asked that.
Okay, well, I'll scroll down the list and we'll get to it here real quick and take a look at it. ISO, this is from Brian Sutton. ISO recently visited and wanted to know how many 2- and 3-port hydrants that you had. There is information in each hydrant record for how many ports are on the hydrant. So yes, you can accomplish that, and that is data you can pull out of the system. And Terrell asked about, can supervisors or managers prevent hydrants from being deleted? And absolutely, yes, you can, Terrell. Whether you have the legacy security permissions or the new roles and permissions, you can limit those folks from deleting hydrants by the permissions and security settings for either one of those. And okay, and Michael is asking about that. Can this be used to assign an area to a station to flow test, do maintenance? Yeah, and I would recommend that you do that. I'm going to jump back to the hydrants grid. One of the things you can do, you can either put that in the zone field or in the district field. Michael, if whatever may work for your particular department, and the size of it really matters on how that's going to work best for you. So you can do that by setting up a zone per station or a district per station as well. You can do that. It's really your choice. David asked about the new rules and permissions. When's going to roll out? Stand by, David. It's coming. The latest information I have is sometime in the third quarter, and that's where we're at right now. So you're going to be seeing this right now. And if anybody desires to be changed to roles and permissions currently, send us an email. And my email address is mark.wolf, W-O-L-F, @emergencyreporting.com, and I will pass that request along, and we will get you switched over to roles and permissions as soon as you would like to. For flushing hydrants, does that include getting a static pressure? And that's your choice, Todd, if you want to do that as well, to grab a static pressure reading. You can do that and record it in the notes section. And Kenneth Williams is asking, okay, yeah, we are, Kenneth, I am going to add a brand new hydrant manually here in just a few minutes. That's, I think, the next thing on the agenda. And how do we look up hydrants that have not been flushed or flowed per district zone? That question is from Brad Smith. Let's just jump into it in a little bit, Brad. There are some specific reports that we can run, and I'll show you those in just a little bit. That will help you out with that. That's great. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get to Kenneth's question right away. That's actually the next thing on the agenda. We're going to go in and put in a hydrant manually by selecting the Add Hydrant link on the Hydrant Grid page. And this is going to be a fictional hydrant, and I'm going to put in like a crazy number like that. We're going to say the hydrant is in service, and we're going to get a location description. And this is on Stater Street, west of Markworth Avenue, and this really does exist where I am. And I'm going to put that in. Now, one of the things I want to mention to you right now is when you set up your master street list, this is one of the modules that the master street list works. So it'll help you with your spelling to keep it accurate throughout your account. So I have Stater Street in here. I'm going to pull up, and you can see it brings in my city, state, and zip code. And what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to save this page. I want to show you what happens to latitude and longitude, because this is really important. We use Google Maps interface, and typically what Google Maps does is when it finds an address and you map a location to that by saving the page, which I'm going to do right now, you're going to see a latitude and longitude pull in for this address, that particular hydrant. Now, the thing is, I'm going to switch to the map view. It's typically what Google Maps does. As you can see right here at the bottom of that pin is the location, latitude, longitude that I put that hydrant in. Typically, though, your fire hydrants are not going to be in the middle of a building or the middle of a parcel, and that's typically what Google Maps does. So when I save that data, if you have the map view, it's very easy. You can go in and just select move, grab it. And this hydrant actually happens to be, let's say, about right there. And we're going to say, okay with that. And that will update my latitude, longitude to get that thing exact. The other thing I want to mention is if you're putting this in manually, our system uses decimal degrees for latitude and longitude. As you can see displayed here, not hours, minutes, seconds. So that information can be pretty beneficial to you. One other thing I'm going to do with this hydrant is I'm putting it in is I'm going to put in a map page. And Alan and myself here a few weeks ago helped the customer out. And what we did for them was set them up with a way that they could set up and produce a report on a routing of their hydrants. They can't use the hydrant ID as a routing method and this will be their troops go to this hydrant, then that hydrant, to maintain some level of efficiency so they're not driving all around the city. The map page is a real good field to do that. Now you can see that I have in this account over 900 hydrants. So I used leading zeros in here because this field, as we put it out on that report, will need all those characters to put them in that correct order. And we use a decimal point as well in here. So if I take a hydrant between 33.0 to 34.0, we put one in the middle there, we can use like 33.5 as a map page number, and it'll put it in the correct order for you. So in this case, we're going to select our station, our zone, and our district, and save the page. And when we save this page, you'll notice at the top of the page, we've got other tabs that we can take a look at. First is the details page. Additional information. Now, we had a question on ports. This is where you would put that information on, is in the details page. I'll also select my type. This is going to be a dry barrel hydrant. It's going to be 3 ports. In this community here, most of the hydrants are Muellers. And we have an actual model number that I put in for that. So you can build to that level of detail. When it was manufactured, this is a brand new hydrant. And when we're going to replace it, well, who knows about that? Probably a long time from now, at least in this community. We still have hydrants in this town that are nearly 100 years old. If you want to keep the value data, you can. The color, now this is a manual entry on your part of what the color coding would be. And in this case, I'm just going to select B so you can just type in any kind of character that you want. And this is going to be probably a 5 1/4 inch barrel in my main size. So we can note the main size. I know we had a question about that. We can note the main size, we just can't put that on the map. We're going to say that we put it in today, and we're going to put it in at that somebody else actually put it in. And one thing that I don't see here, when you put in free text like water department, and I can tell you that text is not in our personnel list. The system will remember that, so you can select that from a drop down that'll pop up in when we start typing in it again. Here's my status field. This is a secondary status field, and remember, you can customize this list to whatever you might need it to do. Your ownership. In this case, this is going to be the city, and the service responsibility is the water department. Valve location that we can note. So I'm going to say 3 feet north, and any notes that I might want to put in here. And we'll save this. Now, if you have files or images like pictures or some kind of documentation you want to add to it, you can under the Files and Images tab. Works just like we do in the incident reports, where you can upload a few of those. And I'll just go out here and grab a photograph real quick. How about an auto crash? So okay, we just had a Firefox error with that. Hopefully it did make it in there. Here we go. So we can take a photograph of this installation. If you have any special things you want to do with that, and put those files in here. You can put photos in, Word documents, PDF files, and so forth. So that's adding a hydrant. There's another way you can put in hydrants. That's the way you can do it, one hydrant at a time. You do have the availability of, in the settings button, in the settings tabs, all the way over here to the right. This is what we call customer facing. You can do an import. Now you do have to have admin rights to do this. You can select hydrants right here, and we actually give you, if you scroll down to the bottom of that page, a CSV download sample, which is a template. It looks like this. It'll pop up here just momentarily. And here's that template. We give you a couple rows of example information, and these are all the fields in the hydrant record that you can put your data in and import, literally hundreds of them at one time. I did an import yesterday doing some testing, and imported over 900 hydrants into this account in probably less than 5 minutes. One thing I want to point out to you is column K right here. So when you're putting your data in, if you choose to do a bulk upload using this template, if the hydrant is in service, make sure you put a 1 in that cell. If you don't put a 1 in, the system will render a 0 into that cell automatically, and that puts it in out of service status. So you want to make sure if it is in service, put a 1 in that column. That's column K in that template. So that's basically how you can do that fairly quickly, is to import those hydrants. And we're going to go out here and actually run that real quick. And now I have to remember where it is under downloads. maybe not. Okay, I don't want to spend a lot of time looking for that, but you can do this. What I recommend, if you do an import of hydrants, just do 2 or 3 of them, so you get the hang of it and make sure it's working correctly for you and putting the data in where you need it to be. So Alan, do we need to check up with anything on the questions? I know you've got a bunch of them been running there.
The one question that David had was, is there a report for flows, hydrant flows by zone by date? There's not by zone. There's just hydrant flows by date. Augie was asking if do you have the template for hydrant flow tests?
Okay, that's from Augie. Okay, Augie, there's a technical glitch and error with that import. So they've taken it off. It's not customer facing anymore. We can still perform it on the back end of the system for you. If you have that, there's a couple steps that we have to do. But if you, I put my email out there before, you know, I may put that into the chat window. I'm not sure how we can get that done for you. But if you send that file to me, I can work on getting that imported for you. And if you need it, let me know and I will send it to you.
And then Brian posted how he coded his ports. So I answered the question with the question so that everybody can see it.
Oh, awesome.
For information. Thank you, Brian.
Brian is typically on top of his game. Okay, thanks, Augie. I will send that to you. And then you'll have my email address where you can send that back to me. If anybody else wants that, put a note in here and we'll take a look at it and make sure that we get that information to you. Okay, so let's see. The last thing we're going to do is over the reports. And Alan just mentioned that just a few moments ago. The reports developed from hydrants are available from the reports button at the top of the page. You don't have to go to the reports page to do this. And there's a number of them in here. I'm going to dive into a few of them in a little bit here. So when we talked about, however, I want to do this is I want to go back and show you what we're talking about with this routing using that map page field. What I'm going to do is go jump back into report 1241, which is hydrants per map page, and select that. You have to do one special thing after you render this report to get this to work for you. And this was a big deal for a department, so we worked with them to make sure this worked for them. Alan, I think, is the one that led this. So you can see what we have here when we render this report out. Trying to find it, trying to zoom in a little bit. So hopefully everybody can see this. What we have is the map page field. This report, hydrants per map page, renders out first by the map page number, and then the hydrant ID is right below it. So you can use that map page number to render that report. And if I select text download in the upper right corner, and it'll just take a moment to render this. I'll show you what this will do is put all that data into the spreadsheet. And in column A, we get those map page numbers, and they will be sorted as text from smallest to biggest. And here's that hydrant I just put in as 34.0. So that's how that would work for you. So for example, if you have over 1,000 hydrants in your department, you would need to make sure you put 4 characters before the decimal point into that map page field for this to sort correctly for you. And gives you the other information over here, especially the address and location. And you can use this as a printout for your folks, split it up however you want using the power of Excel. So that was a really big deal for this department, and we helped them out. And I just wanted to cover that for you.
Josh had a good question, Mark. He asked, when entering a flow test for a dry hydrant or draft site, it will not save without entering a static or residual pressure, which of course there is none. He was wondering if there's a way we can record our flow rates from those sites for rating purposes.
Yeah, you would do it exactly like that. Let me show you that. We're going to put in a flow test in a little bit. So hopefully that'll work out for you. Let me get back into hydrants. Where we're going to jump to now, and Alan, I'll make sure you make sure I do cover that in a little bit. I do have it on my notes, so. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and create automatic maintenance work order. We're going to schedule some maintenance, in other words. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to filter my list starting with 30, so I get up to the 300 number hydrants. And I'm just going to select several of them here. So you would do this however you would need to select your hydrants that you want to schedule the maintenance. I'm going to come over here to advanced search, not advanced search, excuse me, bulk operations. I'm going to select my schedule maintenance, my bulk operation, and perform the bulk operation. So I'm going to request it. And here's my maintenance interval. And these are set up by you, the user. So I'm going to do a annual flushing on these. And my first date, I'm going to date this for January 2 and schedule it. And it just created that schedule for those hydrants. So if I go into hydrant number 300, for example, you're going to see in my scheduled maintenance tab that I just set up today, starting on July 2nd, 2018, an annual flushing maintenance interval. And what will happen is, generally speaking, in these, I have it set up in this account, and I'll show you this in a few minutes for maintenance intervals, for that to auto-generate a work order 30 days prior to my first scheduled date. So in this case, on June 1st, or June 2nd, excuse me, it would have automatically generated that work order. Now, it takes a little bit of time for the system to actually generate this. It may take an hour or two if I did it right now in my example where I post-dated it. So we're not going to see it immediately in this list right here, but it will populate eventually. So it's as simple as that we can set those up. Now you can use your filters on your grid to set these up for a number of hydrants. For example, if you have you want to do all the hydrants in zone C, I'm going to remove my 30 over here. Something kind of went crazy there. So we're going to go back to zone C. And you can see for 63 hydrants, if I just select the box next to the ID field, it's going to pick every one of those hydrants in that zone that quick. And then we can go in and just in a few seconds and a few mouse clicks, set up that maintenance, scheduled maintenance for that particular hydrant. So let's do this then. What we have is, so we generated work orders. I did an operation before today here that generated some work orders, and it was involved in the hydrants, these annual flushing ones for hydrant 100 to 109. So I generated these work orders to schedule maintenance, like that operation I just performed earlier today. So let's say we actually went out there and we did these. We can come in here and filter our list first by complete no. So we want to complete this, and we could actually filter it additionally by typing in the title. So we minimize that. I can select all of those work orders that quick. And with the bulk operation, I can come in and complete those work orders. I'm going to say I did the work out there. We completed them today. I could put some notes in my description if I have cost information for total or per work order and completion hours. So let's say we had 1 hour per hydrant. We can put that information in just a few mouse clicks like that. We've completed all those work orders. So it works very, very well for you to minimize your keyboard time and your data entry. Again, so that's what we want to demonstrate a little bit for. This really works out very, very well for you. So Alan, we're going to move on to flow test, and unless you have some questions you want us to jump to.
No, I think we're good.
Okay, awesome. So let's do this. We're going to jump back to our hydrants grid, and we're going to do a pretty simple work order here and for a hydrant flow test. And one thing I want to do before we do that, we're going to go back to PowerPoint here. I want to show you a couple things. Our system uses the NFPA 291 formula for developing the predicted flow at the desired residual pressure. And right now on your screen, that is that formula right there. The only thing you need to do is put the numbers in. That's the formula we use. And we also use the formula for the flow to determine the flow from a circular outlet from the same standard, NFPA 291, and this is that flow as well. So I just wanted to point that out to everybody. They're pre-built into the system, and we're going to demonstrate to you now on how this works. I'm going to pick out hydrant number 100. Down here, we're going to go into this hydrant, and we're going to select the flow test tab at the top of the page, and we're going to select add flow test. Now, even if this is a dry hydrant, you can still record some data in here, and I'll show you how to do that in a couple minutes. I'll put another test in for another hydrant. So one of the things that we want to make sure that we talk about is you're recording these flow tests. The system is designed using the NFPA 291 test method, which we have a test hydrant to record data from. So when we're setting this all up, I will gather my data. I've got a static pressure I enter. And let's say in this case, I've got a residual pressure of 34. And you can see that the desired pressure autofills to 20 PSI. And that is because that is what the NFPA 291 standard defaults to in references. That's your target. One of the things you want to do in an overall test, one of your goals is to get your residual pressure as close to 20 as you can. And that may necessitate you to opening up more than one fire hydrant. So let's put our flow hydrants down here. In this case, we're going to just put one in. So I want to note my number of it, 102, my port diameter. And we had a question just the other day about this port diameter. Can these be filled in automatically by default? So let's say you always use a 2.5-inch port for hydrant testing, and the answer is unfortunately no. When we select the friction coefficient, we're going to select the correct coefficient for the hydrant by the makeup and construction of your hydrant. The drawing I'm under right now is a 0.7. The one in the middle is a 0.8 coefficient, and the one on the left-hand side is the 0.9, which is what most hydrants may be. And we're going to select our pitot pressure. And let's say we had a pitot pressure of 32 on this. When I select the tab key, it's going to calculate up my flow in gallons per minute that I calculated using that formula that I showed you before. Now, one thing the system does do, that I'll warn you right now, it doesn't have that much of an effect when you're putting a flow test in, but with having fractions, my coefficient and my port diameter, my flow, when it calculates out, should have fractional amounts down here, depending on what my port diameter, my friction coefficient is. The system will round this number up. So this 949 gallons per minute may very well be 948.7. And that will change the volume at the desired pressure very, very slightly, in most cases, less than 5 gallons per minute. So after we do all this work, you can see that my volume at the desired pressure comes out to be 1,379 gallons per minute. Now, we didn't get down even close to our residual pressure. Now, most cases you would call this good and move on. But let's say you want it to be as accurate as you can be. So you use an additional flow hydrant, which is really the proper way to go. I'm going to use, let's say, hydrant 99, same port diameter. My friction coefficient is 0.8 this time. My pitot pressure, let's say in this case, is 34. Let's say my pitot on this other one, since we opened the second one up, went down a little bit. So you can see it's calculating it out here, and it's changed my volume at desired pressure quite a bit. And that's up about 600 or 700 gallons per minute right there. So that's one thing that you want to do. What other thing I need to do is recalculate and note my residual pressure. So let me put that in. And again, what that does is adjust that back down since I have the correct value in here. Just gives us a little bit better accuracy when we're determining that volume at desired flow. Try to get your residual pressure as close to the desired pressure as you can by opening up additional hydrants. Now, we know that takes a lot of staffing and manpower you may not have, so you can use one hydrant for a test. And let me show you how you do that. I'm going to actually come in and save this record and do this again. This is what we had to do in my department, because we did not have the staffing to go out and do a full-blown 291 test on every hydrant. So what we did is we used the same hydrant for all of our readings. So let's say we get a static pressure of 48. Our residual pressure was 28. Desired pressure, we always left at 20. Our downstream hydrant was one and the same. And we put the actual pitot pressure, which was typically 1 or 2 psi less than the residual pressure in there, and calculate it out that way and get 1,025 gallons per minute. Now, that's going to be fairly close, but it's not going to be as accurate as it can be. And that's how you would work around doing a full-blown 291 test of using the same exact hydrant to get your static pressure, and then use it for your flow to get your pitot pressure and your residual pressure at the same time. That's how we had to do it to minimize our manpower needs and staffing needs for that. Just one way to accomplish that. Now, if you use in your department a different method for calculating fire hydrant flows, and you come up with some value for your gallon per minute that you're wanting to record in here, you can do this. And let me show you one way of doing this. This is also how you could do it for recording the flow you achieve through a dry hydrant. You can come down here and put in, I'm going to show you the quick way to do this, a 2 in static pressure, a 1 in residual pressure, and you can see my desired pressure is 1. Then I can come down here to my volume at desired pressure field and just select that 0 down here. Let's say I pulled in 1,200 gallons per minute. When I save this record, it's going to color code this particular hydrant to that value that I put in here manually. So that's how you would do that manually, and that's how I would. I know we had a question on that from somebody on a dry hydrant. That's how I would do it, and maybe you can put a note down here. Yeah, dry hydrant drafting flow test. So we have that in the record. So if anybody asks about it, that's in there. So hopefully that answers your question. So whoever asked that out there, so you can see how we have that marked. Hopefully that's good. So let's check questions. Alan.
There's a few questions here, Mark, if you want to touch on them. Starting with Todd asked if he could ask a question on the air.
Okay, Todd, if we have some time, and we're getting kind of close right now, so we may have some time here for that. Okay, John Novak.
Yep.
Okay, I just showed you how to do that, John. So if you're using a flow meter and you want to put that flow in, just do it how I did there. Add flow test. I'll just review it really, really quick for you. Put in a static pressure of 2. Residual pressure of 1, you'll get a 1 in the desired pressure, and then select that 0 for the volume and enter your data, and then save it. Oops, I got the wrong value in there. Here we go. Just like that. 2, 1, that 1 will pre-populate. Put your amount in here, your gallon per minute discharge that you recorded with your flow meter, and save it. Hopefully that answers your question.
And then William was asking why 20 PSI is the desired PSI.
Okay, that is what Nfpa 291. I knew somebody's going to answer that question, ask that question, so I looked it up yesterday just to make sure I was entirely correct. That is the minimum pressure that Nfpa recommends that you operate off of a pressurized water system like fire hydrants from. And the reason being is that if you go lower than that, you can actually collapse water mains, and you can also cause issues with when you reduce that pressure. You can break free items from inside the pipes, especially if it's old cast iron pipes, and have them distributed through the system, or maybe even into your pump. And that's why they recommend 20 psi as a desired pressure. And one thing I maybe I did not even mention is you can actually change that if you'd like to. Let's say you want to use 10. There's no reason that you can't change that. Even though it pre-populates and defaults to 20, you can change it like I just did here to 10 or 5, and you can see what it's doing to my volume at desired pressure, it will change that. But it defaults to 20 because that's what NFPA 291 recommends. So I think that catches us up, right, Alan? And
Yeah, yep, I think so.
Okay, we're going to go back out to the Hydrants Grid real quick and show one feature. In this account, I do have the mapping module enabled on it. So we just want to show you the map view, what this looks like. And this is a feature, if you don't have this, it's an excellent feature to get. Now, it is an add-on cost, and talk to your salesperson about this. With the map view, what I did is I had a filtered list. We just had a few hydrants put on it. So I'm going to come down here and show you what this looks like on the map. And if I can move this map over just a little bit, you can see, and these are probably real test data for most of these hydrants that are red. There's a green one, that's a fake hydrant. That really doesn't exist. In this part of our city here, the water supply is kind of terrible, actually. So you can see our color coding matches what the NFPA 291 recommends, and we cannot change that, it's by default. Now, if I had a hydrant on the page that was out of service, as you can see by my legend over here on the right, it would have an X through it. And that doesn't, the color coding won't change, it'll just put an X on it. And the other thing I want to show you is, I thought I saw one down here, any hydrant that is not tested will be in this yellow color, which means it's untested. Another nice feature of this map is, you can see when I navigate my mouse over that hydrant, it gives me the hydrant ID number. And if I select it, while that hydrant ID number is displayed, it gives me the basic information on this hydrant, the number, the status, the location or address. There's the location. No test results on this, but I can go right in. So let's say I just tested this and put a flow test in right from the map. And this is a really, really nice feature. Add my flow test and go ahead and put my data in. And put a flow hydrant down here. Quickly, boom, and there we go. We calculate out the 1,065 gallons per minute. We'll pass it and save it. And now if we go back out to the map, you will see that will be color coded and it should be green. And there it is, right there, that one. It's one I just did. Another nice feature of the system is, let's say we're looking at this map, and let's even go to the satellite view. Let's say they put a hydrant right on this corner, right next to the Greenville roller rink. Come out here, we can select place new hydrant from the map, and we can locate it, put it on here, and we're just going to give this a fancy number and save it. Or we can select next ID and it'll pick the highest number in your account and add one to it. And then we can go right to that hydrant. And obviously, I think we just found a bug, Alan. What do you think? It's not saving the data, maybe.
Question here.
Okay, we're going to check into that. If it doesn't actually work right, we will get that written up to be a bug. But it's a nice feature to have, that you can change the map over to satellite view and place that new hydrant right on the map. Put your data in.
Mark, it's Tom. I think there's been some known issues about manually adding hydrants in the map view. I can double check VSTS, but I think I remember something. Okay.
All right. Okay. Perfect. Thanks, Tom. Okay, folks, the last thing I want to do is go to reports. And we may go over a few minutes today, folks, because we're right about time, and cover a few of these reports. The ones that I like, and the first one is the 1242 report, hydrants for agency. Now, what this is going to do is go out to your grid and pull every hydrant into this report. And since there's a lot of data, it might take just a few minutes to do this. This list is sorted by zone and then further sorted by the ID number of the hydrant. If you put alpha characters in here, it will sort them by those too. So that's the first report I want to show you. And it gives us a lot of information: our type, the make of it, the model, the address, location, and If it's in service, it will say true. If it's out of service, it will display false in that list. So that is report 1242. We want to go back. Report 1246. This report is of a huge benefit if you have an ISO survey coming in. You can put a date range in here for the time period they want to see the records for, and then run that report. When we create that report, what it's going to do is bring up every hydrant that you have maintenance histories in and display it on the report. Just take a moment for this report to render. And we're going to get to somebody else had a question on here about the hydrants that haven't been tested. And I'll show you that in just a couple moments here as soon as we get this report to render. You may have seen it on that list. It's the 1247 report. There's a lot of data in this account, so it's going to take a few moments for it to collect all that and render the actual report. And threw it onto my other screen. Here we go. So this is this 1246 report. So it gives me a hydrant number 1. Gives me my location of it, the date, who did the work, the title of it, what the problem was if it was an actual repair, the resolution, time, cost, and status of that work order. You can see if I scroll down through here, there's quite a bit of work down here. And this report actually is quite large. With 900 hydrants, it comes out to 108 pages. I would take this report and print it out as a PDF document and burn a disk with that data and give that to ISO. To display your flow test results, one of the best reports to use is the 1248 report, and it is at the top of the right-hand column, hydrants flow tested for a date range. So what we're going to do is just going to start this just a few days ago here because I've done a bunch of work in here. Create that report and show you that real quick. Let me drag that report on over. And you can see it breaks it down by zone, hydrant ID number, address, location, the test date, when we started, the end time, static residual pressure, our gallons per minute from our downstream hydrant. We have that and so forth. So that's a real good information, and our desired flow. So dry hydrant drafting flow test is listed down here. So I wanted to show you that. So that is the 1248 report. Now let's go do one that, an example of a report of ones that do not have it's not tested, and that is a 1247 report, which is right below the one we just looked at. Hydrants not flow tested for a date range. So we can go in here and put a date range in. This list is actually going to be kind of big for this particular account. But when it renders this report out, this will be reports that do not, or hydrants that do not have a flow test recorded for them. And there's what that report looks like. That is the 1247 report. That's just a few of them I wanted to cover with you. And I think that's all we want to do in there for now. So now we want to catch up with any questions that we have.
So Mark, one question that Kevin had is how to view archived work orders. And that's one of the areas of the system that we're trying to clean up right now, the verbiage between archived and delete. Because if a work order is quote unquote archived, it's really deleted. There is no way to view it. So that answers that question.
That's correct. I want to just reemphasize that. When you delete anything in the Hydrants module, it's a hard delete. There's no archiving of it.
And then Stephen had a question, how about an inventory report that shows GPS coordinates? I would say the only way to do that would be a CSV download.
I agree with you. Let's go back to hydrants and I'll show you that. Let's pull that in right now. We do a CSV download on that, and it should just take a moment. Those columns are right over here, AI and AJ, and you can take this report here and strip out any columns you don't need and reduce this back to one page width, for example, and display your latitude and longitude coordinates. One thing I'll show you in this particular account is we're only looks like 4 or 5 characters past the on the right side of the decimal point, but when I select that cell, you can see how accurate we are with that, with going multiple characters out there, and I'm not going to count them, but there's a bunch. So what you might want to do is to go in here and reformat that cell to display all of those. So let me, and I am in something there I don't want to be. Okay, here we go. So now if I expand that cell out, you can see that it was just truncating them a little bit, and it just rounded them up. If I go in and put like 12 characters out there, if I do a format, you can't display everything you have. Number, decimal places, we want to see, let's say 15. So we can see all of those characters that way. So hopefully that answers your question, Stephen. And that is everything on my notes. So let's get to, okay, Stephen just posted another question. We do either a basic or advanced search on a street name. Is there a way to check cross street? Ooh, I don't, there's not a field for a cross street in here. Let's get out of that thing and go back in here. What we're talking about here, I think.
You can do it on advanced search.
Advanced search. And that, what we would do is put in on my advanced search, I'm going to put in main and my cross street. I'm going to type in
Right there below it.
Okay, oh yeah, cross street right down here. Sorry about that. And I don't even know if there's a hydrant listed at main and locust on here, so we'll run that advanced search. And so no, the answer is no on this particular case. Yeah, so did I, Stephen. So no big deal. We'll let you slide this time.
Hey, Mark, it's Tom. One report that's not listed in the reports button there for hydrants is report 1718. You want to have them take a quick look at that one. It's a newer report, fire marshal's report, but it includes some hydrant data.
All righty, 1718. Go ahead to the year. Yes, you can, Kenneth. His question is, just to make sure I am clear, we can manually enter our latitude and longitude when entering a hydrant. Yes, you can. The system will render that if you save the page, but if you manually type one in, it should keep that data. Just double check it when you do save it. Okay, so here's our monthly incident hydrant and fire marshal's report. And if we scroll down here a bit, so we've got some information, hydrants tested 6. So it does put that out there on that information. Okay, is that what you wanted to see, Tom?
Yeah, doesn't display tons of hydrant data, but it is a newer report that does include some hydrant data, and often the fire marshal is also responsible in fire prevention division for, water supply and tracking all of that. So it's just kind of a high level report that they can produce monthly.
Okay, perfect. So Kevin has asked, can I print an out of service hydrant list? I want to look on the reports list to see, and there is not a pre-built list for that. But here's how you do that. Kevin, if you stand by with me just a second, here's how you would do that. First thing you would do is filter your list by the service. We're going to say out of service and see them only. So we have 2 in this case. I'm going to do a CSV download, and it's going to put that data into that spreadsheet. So that is an out of service hydrant list. Here's my hydrant ID numbers and all my other data. And those hydrants, there's really not a lot of data in here with them. So, but that's how you would accomplish that, Kevin. So hopefully we got your answer on that. Okay, we're going to give everybody one last opportunity to put a question in. And what we should do here, since we're over a little bit, it doesn't matter too much actually. Let's get to, is Todd Russell still out there? Todd, yes he is. So what I am going to do, Todd, I assume you have a microphone. I just unmuted you. Nope, I did not. I unmuted Tom. Here we go, Todd. Todd, your microphone should be live. And Todd Bueller, he must have stepped away for a moment. That's okay. We'll mute him back up and give everybody one last opportunity to put in a question. And Alan, if you can run down that list to make sure we did get everybody answered, we will call it a day. You're welcome, George and Kenneth. Thanks for that. Thanks, Stephen. We appreciate your comment for that. Yes, it's something that not a lot of people know. But you can do that. Most excellent. So we hope we got you some good information with that.
Hey, Mark, it's Tom Allen. Had to step away and head off, but yeah, I'll echo that. Thanks for all the nice comments. And Stephen, don't worry. We know we're still well aware of the capitalized issue, the capitals versus lowercase. So stay with us. We're not gonna drop the ball on that one. So I remember that from the workroom from when we talked.
All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for participating today. And we're going to go ahead and call it a day and put this one in the records book. And thanks again. And hopefully we'll see you on the next one.